There's a brand new book coming to D&D Beyond. What is that book?
That book is this one, which will probably blur out straight away. It's Heliana's Guide to Monster Hunting.
Yeah, and what is in the book? This is actually extremely full of like character options and adventure content.
It's so full. So what's coming to it's 600 pages full, but what's coming to D&D Beyond is part one. In order to make it more feasible for the ingestion team, we've split it into part one and part two. Part one includes basically the things you love most from role-playing games, which is the harvesting, the crafting, the tracking down a monster to its lair and preparing how you're going to fight it, all kind of tucked into one book. So we have recipes for every magic item in D&D. Well, everyone in the SRD and everyone in the book, because there's 150 new items. And then we have the uniquely harvestable components from each monster type, which you can use to craft those magic items.
And
And that's not all.
yeah.
So in here, our adventures, we call them monster hunts. There are 5 monster hunts. From each of those, you can craft bespoke magic items. So there's 10 magic items you can craft from each boss monster that you fight, and a new little familiar that you can also craft from them using a little bit of their blood and some biomancy magic.
That's amazing. Can you run me through what the subclasses are in this?
So it's 4 subclasses in this first part of the book. We have the flesh weaving bard, who specializes in a kind of a school of magic we introduced in this book called biomancy. But he's all about improving himself and his allies with a magical needle or tying enemies up with it. We have the hive druid. So this is kind of like their body is the nest for all of these arthropods, insects, all that sort of stuff. And they can either protect themselves with clouds of insects or send them to fight someone. They're more of a melee-based druid. And then we have the Oath of the Harvest Paladin, which is basically if you want to play everyone's grandmother and have a really good meal before a fight happens and support your friends.
Right.
And then we have the Biomancy Wizard, so we've given some spells, we've given the Biomancy Wizard a list of spells that it can bring into the Biomancy school for itself, because obviously there's the 8 schools and we've introduced this ninth. Um, and it is all about self-improvement, you know? He's really into, going inside and making really tiny stitches on his jeans to maybe give himself a third arm that he grows out of his chest to hold his spell book. Or I don't know, maybe he'll like have some web fingers to help him swim faster, stuff like that.
And then we have 8 races, unique races that are most of them are monstrous races. Like you can play an ooze person, you can play a chicken, you can play a pangolin, you can play a raccoon, which is one of our faint favorite, where you just like it's called the raccoon. So you have the urban raccoon kind of sub race. You have the tanuki, which is the Japanese raccoon dog, and you have the possum. So you can just like play dead and evade from enemies. We also have the hyphen, which is what happens when any race dies and is taken over by a parasitic mushroom. So you basically become,
Mycelian, Mo. It's the
yeah, mycelium.
mycelian. Hyphen is an adjacent monster race that occurs in one of the monster hunts.
Got it.
Hmm.
And so yeah, so basically you become an undead, the reanimated corpse of your, former self, but mushroomy and oozy.
What was the inspiration behind this book? I mean, clearly monsters.
Yes.
Yeah, Mo, you wanna take that one?
Sure. Yeah. When I started playing D&D, one of the things I loved most was basically, you know, beating a big monster and grabbing whatever is left and make something for myself. But DMs always struggle with like coming with items on the fly for like, you beat a Yeti, you want to make fur boots or whatever. You cannot really do that in an easy way. And so we wanted to give DMs the options to do that by having this big catalog of options to do and giving your players actually agency over what they need to harvest and if of or not they can harvest it. Because right now you just say, well, you killed the Yeti, maybe with a fireball. Is there any fur left? We don't know. So basically, we give rules for all of that. You get to craft your own magic items. And when you craft them, you can craft them with boons, you can craft them with defects, so they're like less efficient. So we made that basically into a whole mini game. And it's inspired mostly by video games, Monster Hunter, The Witcher, those kind of games like that we really all love and basically give you agency over your inventory. They give you agency over how you want to make your character grow with their own magic items because we also introduce magic items that have different rarities so you can just like upgrade them as you go. So if you have like this kind of like iconic thing that your character really revolves around, you can still take it with you across the levels.
Yeah, that's kind of the dream, right? Like you I mean, you've you do tend to form an emotional attachment to like the magical items that you find.
Ex exactly. And you don't want to get rid of it just because now it's weaker and because you get a +2 and not a +1. You don't want to get rid
Mhm.
of your iconic weapon or costume, you know?
I want to just highlight one thing in the crafting, which is
Yeah,
the
yeah.
quirk system that Mo touched on. So it's called quirks. And it's never fun to fail something and suddenly you don't make the item. So instead, we were like, okay, there's degrees of failure and success. The worse your roll, you still make the item, but it has more of these flaw quirks. So it might be that, I don't know, it looks too glitzy, and whenever you draw it or you're walking around, someone just really wants to steal it off you. So the chances of someone stealing it and coming and pickpocketing you and taking it is much higher. Or it might be a boon. So maybe it just like it gives you a great agility. So you have like the ability to land like a cat and take half damage from falling damage. Or maybe it doesn't require an attunement slot. So basically you have four instead of three. Or it could be, if you get one of the flaws, it could be that it forces you to attune to it, even though it shouldn't be an attunement one, kind of like part of a curse. Oh, there's one here, gullibility. When you have this item in your possession, you have disadvantage on wisdom checks, with insight checks.
Now, other than just player focused content, because you mentioned we've got magical items, we've got spells,
Mm.
we have these new subclasses. What was there for the dungeon master? What is there for building these adventures?
So we like to keep everything we make to be kind of setting agnostic. We want you to be able to take what we've made and put it in your own place. So each of these hunts is standalone, and each one is runnable at three different levels, usually about 5 levels apart. So like 3, 8, 13. And we have like different monsters listed out, so it's balanced for each of those playthroughs. Um, but in each hunt, you're going to find some like a selection of motives to motivate your players based around curiosity, like compensation, greed, and morality. And then you're also going to find like a set of unique flora and fauna for the location we've created. So you can put this wherever you want. It might be a kind of a forest called the Springwood. And in there, the like the border between the Feywild and the material plane is very thin. So a lot of these Fey creatures come through and you have to be beware of the plants. I won't say too much more.
Yeah.
Um, and so you can kind of build this quite rich world. And then in addition, there's always an NPC, which is fully kind of fleshed out. There's art, there's a little side block with a little quote. So you always have the first line they're going to say to the players when they meet them. So just to kind of make it easy to build these things in and make your own game. That's kind of what we're going for here. The second half of each of these hunts is the battle. So the first half, you're finding clues about what you're going to fight. Maybe there's this guy who's clutching a feather and his hand is totally sunburnt, but the feather is unburnt. What are you going to interpret from that? Maybe like he got damaged by radiant damage, but the thing he pulled the feather off, that's immune to radiant damage. So suddenly you're trying to work out, what do I need to prepare for this fight? So hopefully you get a long rest. DMs, give them a long rest. They need this. And then you go to the fight, and it's usually a three-wave battle. And it's kind of a puzzle, right? It's like, how am I going to unlock this thing using the clues I've learned and prepared for?
That's perfect. That's amazing.
Yeah, so basically what it does is we wanted to make the boss fights more iconic and dynamic to feel more like a climax rather than just an encounter. So you get all these encounters that, like Max said, they give you clues. You get other narrative encounters that give you clues. You prepare yourself, you go buy your gear, you unlock gear, and you arrive at this boss. And the boss is not just like, 2 hours of hitting the same stuff again. So the boss during the waves, it's gonna unlock maybe new minions, it's gonna unlock new abilities, maybe it's gonna completely transform and change shapes, maybe it's gonna take you to another plane to continue the fight. So every fight feels new, every fight feels like your players won't expect what's gonna happen. And that's what we try to keep during this. I don't think any of the 10 adventures are the same motif basically during the three waves.
And this is what we mean by clues. So this is the physical thing, which is like
Oh, very
perforated,
cool.
and you can hand it out. But this will exist in digital format on D&D Beyond as well.
Yeah, as notes
Why
that you
was
can
this
hand
so
to your
important for
players.
you to like capture this kind of that vibe in the book? Because, like you say, like it's like playing the video game, The Witcher, or
Yeah.
every episode of The Witcher, kind of
Right.
feels like that way.
We wanted to reward two things. Basically, we wanted to not make people feel like there's only one way to play the game. So you need to like min-max your character to just deal the absolute amount of damage or be the absolute like survival beast. So we wanted people that want to be more versatile, want to use the unused spell, want to use the unused magic item to feel like, okay, now that I know what the monster is going to be and it's not just going to be thrown at me, I can prepare. I can be clever. I can try to outsmart the DM, but we also want to give the DM tools to be unpredictable, to up the stakes if possible. If he thinks, oh, they're just gonna be too strong for this guy, well, you have rare actions, you have legendary actions, you can always like come up with something. And so it's like this back and forth between the players that feel like they earned the win, and like they really outsmarted the bosses, and the DM that feels like they have so many tools to make the battle actually more dynamic. So they're not just like, oh, either I'm gonna TPK them or they're gonna steamroll the monster anyway. And from that, once that's done, then you always have this kind of like reward, right? So it's not just like looting, but it's more like, okay, we're gonna harvest this thing, and then we're
Yeah.
gonna have this little ritual where we decide what we wanna do with it. What items do we wanna craft? Do we wanna sell them? Do we wanna make a little familiar from them? And the familiars are usually just like a smaller version of the boss. So you beat like this magnetite dragon, and you get this small dragon that always follows you around. So it's like it's very. We wanted to make it very reward based and very gratifying to actually defy these monsters, which are big challenges. Like every encounter is above deadly or deadly. So it's really
Mhm.
like an achievement when you manage to do that.
With like kind of this system and this viewpoint that you have, like every time that you encounter a monster, you're going to remember that encounter for a very long time because of the things that you have, because of the things you
Mhm.
crafted, because of the
Exactly,
things
you
you
have
took away from that.
keepsakes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
amazing.
One of the things we picked up on as we were playtesting the very first adventure we did was that people loved seeing their preparation pay off.
Yeah.
Even if you spoon feed the preparation, it's like they're still making the choice to, I don't know, prepare this one spell that has a certain damage type. And then suddenly that damage type is like exploiting a vulnerability, and they feel super powerful and clever. And
Yeah.
we want to make people feel good. GMs and players alike.
Prep movies are almost like their own genre, right? Like so many zombie movies are about prep. And then
Yeah,
Exactly,
everything goes
exactly.
yeah.
That's true. That's
everything
true.
falls apart.
I love to think that people think back to after they've run one of these hunts and they just see the montage of like them, I don't know, putting on all the different types of armor and preparing the spells. And yeah.
Yeah, and if you don't know this, Dungeon Masters, boy, if you need a little bit of a light day, do a prep episode. Because the players will just spin. Like if they know they need to break into a bank vault or hunt a particular monster,
Uh-huh.
that can go on for hours.
It can. And these are all designed to be 2 to 3 sessions long.
Yeah.
So at least one of those is going to be pure prep. Well, not prep. It's not prep. It's like investigation.
If you had to sum up this book in like 1 minute, how would you do that?
Heliana's Guide takes the things you're used to from video role-playing games and brings them into D&D 5th edition in a balanced, really fun and easy to use way. So anything from harvesting to crafting to these epic boss battles that have 3 waves and that are constantly changing and you have to adapt. And then to afterwards, you go back to the loot tavern and there's a bard there who's heard about your adventure and penned a song. And there's a QR code in each of these that links to the file that lets you play the song that he's written about your adventure you've just done. So it takes the entire experience you've had and bring that you would have in a video game and brings it into D&D, but keeps it simple.
When it came to the player options, what was so important for you to like nail? Because yeah, I think every player has like the fantasy of becoming a monster at some point as well,
Yes.
becoming the thing that you're hunting.
For the player options, we tried to nail 3 things. One that was very important for us is that it shouldn't just be something that exists that you reflavor. Like if you could just reflavor any existing race, just
Yeah.
like add a skin on it and it's one of these, we don't want it. Second, we wanted to introduce new ways that we could interact with race. So for example, we have this race, you start as a caterpillar, and at some level, you get to choose if you want to evolve into a moth, right? So it's something that wasn't seen before. Same thing as the mushroom that overcomes a body that's already. So you keep basically some of the stats and some of the improvement that you have from your best class. So for example, if you were an orc or you were like a half
Base
elf, you
race.
would keep some of those. Sorry, base race. You would keep some of those, and then the mushroom. Parasite would give you new things. So that's also was interesting for us. And the third thing is was we just wanted to be funny and silly. That's why you can play chicken. That's why you can play raccoon. We just wanted to be cute furry friends and weird monsters and gelatinous guys and just be like those kind of zany characters that you get into in campaigns. Yeah.
You also have tons of maps. You have tons of things to like supplement these adventures.
Yeah, maps courtesy of Chain Peku, who let us use their maps and have variant, like 20 variants on each map if you want to change the location or anything like that.
We have
Um,
ambience music for every location and boss fight. We have
mm,
monster cries. So basically,
Just
spent a
Jackdaw.
lot of time,
Yeah,
just Jackdaw spent a lot of time making this like custom screeches and screams and roars for every one of the bosses. So it's very good to set the scene. We also have, I think, more than 200 random encounters max per biome in the book.
we do. We do. We have every biome. I think there's 14, and then there's like 10 narrative encounters, so non-hostile, and then 8 hostile encounters. And this goes with the tracking system, which is where we really want people to be inventive. So you, as a player, basically get to say what tactic you use. Maybe you're just going to brute force chop your way through a jungle and use strength and athletics. And then the DM's going to say, okay, well, that is a really kind of not, that doesn't make a lot of sense. Like you could climb a tree and look where you want to go instead of just brute forcing or look for footprints. So I'm going to set this DC at 20. If you succeed on the DC, you get a narrative encounter. If you fail, you get a hostile one. But it's encouraging you to use your skills and proficiencies in like innovative ways.